The main focus of our research is to look at sensory trade-offs in brains. There's only so much room in the brain due to cranial space and energy, so there's like a competition between brain regions to get more space. For example, in the human brain, the prefrontal cortex is massive, but that doesn't leave a lot of room for the other brain regions. While in a dog brain, there might be a much smaller prefrontal cortex, but they have a pretty massive sensory region for smell, so they have great smell, but they're not as smart as us.
So we're using ducks as a model species because they're very diverse in their sensory ecology, right? So we have some ducks, obviously, that are relying a lot on their tactile sense, so their beak is very sensitive and they dedicate a lot of brain space to processing information from their beak. Some are very smell orientated, so they use their sense of smell for social communication. There's been some work done looking at that. Some seem to rely a little bit more on their sense of hearing. And some rely more on their visual system for hunting and locating prey and also avoiding predation as well. So despite being kind of on the surface being very similar, all the different duck species, they actually are a very, very diverse group. And that makes it a really an ideal group of species to examine this idea of neural trade-offs.
So the project that I'm working on this summer, and I have been working on, is all about waterfowl and beaks of waterfowl specifically. And they exploit a variety of food sources and have characteristic beak diversity within waterfowl. And so based on their variety of food sources that they exploit and the diversity of beak structure and morphology, they can be classified into 4 different feeding categories: divers, dabblers, active pursuers, and grazers. There's 3 areas of analysis that we've been looking at. The number of receptors in the beak, and these are mechanoreceptors or touch receptors, and then that information is then transferred along the trigeminal nerve and terminates in the PRV, or the principal sensory trigeminal nucleus, which processes the tactile information from the beak.
You know, if you go back in evolutionary history, there's obviously one ancestor of ducks. So there was probably an adaptive radiation event, and it's thought that this big adaptive radiation event kind of affected a lot of different birds, not only ducks. So there was a big event that really sparked the adaptive radiation of ducks. So you would have had this one ancestral duck diversifying into a huge array of different species, and basically all adapting to a different niche, right? And that's really how natural selection works, and that's really what creates the diversity amongst animals on the planet.